I feel like every Pokemon Legends ZA player just wants to have a good team of Pokemon as soon as they can. So today I want to try and help with that and answer the question, what are the best mid-game Pokemon in Pokemon Legends ZA? Hey everyone, this is Connor here at Pokemon House. I'm excited to do this video today. Essentially, what I want to do today is I want to look at Wild Zones 5 to 10 in particular, that kind of what I think represent the early to mid-game of Pokemon Legends ZA, and then look at the best Pokemon you can get in those zones, not only that are good immediately, but also ones that scale into the late game really effectively. A couple caveats: I'm not going to include any Pokemon that you can get out in the open world or from quests. I want these to basically be as easily as accessible as possible, ones that you can get, like I said, in the early to mid game. So let's take a look at my picks for my favorite 6, as well as a few honorable mentions. Let's start quickly by kind of taking a look at the map and what these Wild Zones have to offer. So again, we're starting with Wild Zone 5. We've got some great Pokemon here. Manectric, Abra, Pidgeotto, both good shouts. Bellsprout even. Wild Zone 10's got a few. You have a Starmie there, a Tynamo depending on what you want, a Slowpoke. Arbok as well. Some interesting ones in Wild Zone 9. Kadabra, Sableye, Mawile, kind of all interesting shouts, right? Wild Zone 7 has a few. Not as much here that I'm a huge fan of personally. Maybe you go the Hippodamon route. And then Wild Zone 8 is honestly, I think, one of the more high-value Wild Zones in the game. You can get Gible, Excadrill, Machop, Numel, etc. And then Wild Zone 6 over here as well has a few pretty interesting ones as well. Magikarp, Swablu, etc. But let's take a look at what I've actually got here. These 6 Pokemon in my party are actually the ones that I want to talk about in this video, as I think being kind of the most complete 6. I'm taking starters out of this because I feel like you should. I don't know what starter each of you chose, so I don't want to include any of those. And then these 5 here, kind of honorable mentions, so I kind of want to go through why I think this should be the case. A lot of what we're looking for here, again, like I mentioned, is it good now? Can it be good in the late game? Basically, what Pokemon can you get in these areas that you can really reasonably go through the campaign with and feel good about? I feel like Gible and Gabite going into Garchomp just feels like it has to be a shout. This is one of the most accessible, really strong Pokemon you can get early on, so I would absolutely look to go for this. Bulldoze is a sick move to start off with. You can get some other stuff going from there. Manectric, this is actually an Alpha Manectric. That was the little guy that was standing next to me out in the courtyard. I personally just like Manectric as a Pokemon. This is an early Mega you can get. This is also a really early Alpha Pokemon you can get, so you can get a lot of good stuff out of the Manectric early game. You get an Electric type and has some good moves. You get Thunderbolt pretty early. And this is one where I feel like I had a huge power spike in the mid game when I got this Alpha Manectric. It was hard to get. I would recommend going into that fight with some ground Pokemon, but I think this is a super good mid game shout. Pidgeot is an interesting one. I feel like, you can certainly make the case Pidgey is an early game Pokemon, and I think you can make the same case for Staryu, right? But Pidgeot feels like it has a ton of utility throughout a lot of the game. Quick Attack early game is really, really good. And then the moveset it currently has, Air Slash, Wing Attack, Aerial Ace is a lot of pressure, and you could certainly swap that around and whatnot, but I feel like Pidgeot for the value is really good. I also think there is an Alpha Pidgeotto you can get pretty early on in the open world, so if you wanted to go that route for the Alpha to have that as well, you could. But I've really enjoyed Pidgeot. I've had Pidgeot since the very early game, but you also can catch this in the mid game and use it as well. Victory Bell is another great shout. This is another one. You can get a Alpha Bellsprout, and I forget which Wild Zone. I think it might be 5. This is another one that I would say is a great shout. Grass Poison is a good typing. Yeah, so again, kind of covering typing so far. We've got Dragon Ground, Electric, Normal Flying, Grass Poison. We want to avoid as much overlap as possible. But yeah, I think there's a lot of utility in the Victory Bell. It's also another early Mega. There's a theme in this list. I like to give players options for early Mega Pokemon to get in the mid game here. But I think Victory Bell's a great shout. Alakazam, now this one's going to require a trade partner, but you can get a Kadabra pretty early. Abras are also kind of scattered throughout, and those ones are early game you can get, but you can also just pick up a Kadabra, trade it with someone for an Alakazam, and here you go. I think there are resources online for trade codes you can use for kind of with strangers to accomplish this, an Alakazam trade code, a Haunter trade code. Otherwise, just snag a friend and do it that way. But yeah, Alakazam is classic, just very speedy, special attacker. Obviously, this one has a terrible nature. I would need to swap if I were to actually use it. But Recover is a great move. You get Reflect, and then you obviously get a lot of damaging psychic moves as well. And then Staryu as well, I included here. You want a water Pokemon. I think at least just to get rid of the purple sludge around. That's why we have the Fire Fang on the Manectric for the Bramble that you can find throughout the map. I would need a Rock Smash Pokemon here, but I imagine Gabite can maybe learn that either way. Mega Starmie sneakily has some of the best base stats of any Mega. I mean, the long legs are goofy, and that could be a barrier for you. Totally understand if it is. But Staryu is super easy to get. You can also get this one early game, get you the water, get you some great moves. You kind of end up doubling up with some Psychic with the Alakazam, but that's where I want to talk about a few alternative options you could go for in these middle zones as well. And I picked these 5 Pokemon. I feel like they're a good blend of strong now, but also scaling into the late game. For example, if you went for the Mawile here, I feel like it's got great typing. That's one you could slot into just about any team, I feel like, in the mid game and feel pretty good about. Only problem is, like, do you use Mawile in the late game? I just don't really think so. So a good, like, if you needed a Pokemon to get you through these zones and then you plan to pick up a new one in maybe Wild Zone 15 through 20 or something, I think Mawile could be a great shout for that. Drillbur going into Excadrill, though, the only reason it's here is because I have the Gabite Garchomp and you already have ground represented. But this Mega is really, really strong. I think Rob just did his tier list, and I think he rated this one pretty highly, and I would agree. Mega Excadrill is crazy. So if you're not privy to using the Garchomp, you're okay with having 2 grounds, I think this would be a really good shout as well. Arbok is a classic if you just want poison. I don't have him here because of the Victory Bell, but if you want to go for Arbok, he's a super easy get in the mid game. That's another one that you'd probably look to replace. I put Slowpoke here, and he's obviously here because of the typing. There's no room for him in this party with these choices. But I hesitated to put Slowpoke too high because to get Slowking, you really have to wait until the late game. So you'd really be playing with a Slowbro for most of the game if you chose to run this. So I really like Slowking, one of my favorite all-time Pokemon, and I would tend to recommend people to use him. I think especially he's pretty good in ZA, but you can't get him into the late game because of the King's Rock and the way the game works. So honestly, a huge bummer there, but I think Slowpoke is an honorable mention at the very least for me. And then Swablu is another one. Normal flying, this gets into Altaria pretty late, but this is a really good option if you're willing to be a little bit patient. This is one if you had, like, if you had the rest of the team able to kind of cover for you, so to speak, you could swap this for the Pidgeot, and I think late game you'd probably like that decision. But, I mean, I've been hearing rumors that Mega Pidgeot is pretty meta for the online multiplayer battling, so maybe you stick with the Pidgeot either way. But like I said, these are just my takes. I want to get people thinking about the best kind of mid-game Pokemon. I've seen a lot of videos about best early-game Pokemon, but honestly, I feel like those don't often stick outside of, like I said, maybe the Staryu and Pidgeot here. The rest of these I really think are solid mid-game Pokemon. But I'd be curious to hear what you all think. Let me know in the comments which Pokemon you think I'm missing here, which ones you'd recommend instead, etc., etc. We're going to continue the guides here. Obviously, we've been covering the game way more heavy-handedly on the website with a lot of written articles, but now that Rob and I are digging into the game more ourselves, we are going to get some more video content out here, so expect some late-game guides. I'm really personally excited to get into some multiplayer reviews and some tier lists and kind of the meta of multiplayer in this game. It's super, super fascinating, and I'm very, very excited to dive in. I've got my own party that I'm kind of running here. I'm planning on using Mega Scrafty and Mega Gengar and probably Mega Pidgeot as my team, so we'll see. But in any case, let me all know in the comments, like I said, what you think about this. And from our house to yours, we'll see you all next time here at Pokemon House.